Let's take conditions when it comes to diagnoses that we are experiencing more and more of in our world today when it comes to energy profiling, specifically the diagnostic condition of ADD or ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive ADHD, ADD, attention deficit disorder. Yeah, disorder's the last word. I never am really fond of the whole disorder thing because it really is a shaming label. And I know that's a diagnostic label. And first of all, if I were to, you go, well, do you believe in it, Carol? Yeah, I believe there's chemical imbalances and brain health issues that really would classify as ADD and ADHD. Do I think it's a real thing? Yeah, I've had my brain scan with a SPECT scan at the Amen Clinic twice. I know that the brain has issues that need to be corrected that will create the symptoms and the sort of the spectrum of what we call ADD and ADHD. Now, my parenting career spans an earlier time period. My children now are in their 30s. I was raising children in the late 80s and all through the 90s. And that's when that kind of came on the scene. The diagnostic label of ADD started to kind of have a frontline present reference, meaning if children were not able, and it was in the school system that kind of historically it got its movement, was because a child couldn't sit still and learn. They were too much movement, too busy, not able to process information in the standard practice of how information has been taught in the school system. We've seen a major shift in the education system of the variables and how the options that you have. Homeschooling was kind of at the grassroots level. When my children were in elementary school, it was just starting to become a thing, but it was very rare that you met people, nor did it have nationwide networks and internet support that it does now. There weren't charter schools, there weren't these variables to help children have different learning environments that could support different learning styles. And so you saw this diagnostic ADD thing coming forward in schools a lot, where children then were getting put on Ritalin and medication, and it got its momentum in those early days. In fact, my youngest son, if I didn't know the energy profiling work, the energy healing work that I knew, he's a type 4 in my energy profiling system, he would come home very agitated, really worked up. And I could have easily thought, my child has ADD. He just is all over the place. He's too intense. He's just blah, unloading. Well, in his nature as a type 4, he was around too much stimulus through the day. He was taking on other people's energy. He's very sensitive to energy. As a type 4, he needs a certain amount of solitude. He gets that now as a young adult in his early 30s by mountain biking by himself for hours. He'll go out for hours and ride his mountain bike in nature, and it's solitude. It's like Zen. It's just renewing to him. But I tuned into that when he was about 8 years old, that I needed to help him clear his energy. And so I have a really good video where I teach you what's called a spinal flush that can help your children clean up. It's a zip up and a spinal flush. I learned this from Donna Eden years ago because he was 8 at the time, and he's now 31 at the time of this recording. And he'd come home from school, and we'd do the spinal flush, get him grounded, clean up his energetic space, his system, and he would ground himself. I didn't know he was a type 4 then. By high school, I had started authoring the energy profiling system. So it was now apparent that he needed that space. He needed to be shown respect, be treated as his own authority, and things started to shift big time by his sophomore year as far as our reference point to him. So yeah, could that have made me think he had that condition? Very much. Now, the type that's the most likely to be labeled or be diagnosed with that, where maybe it's not a real brain health concern, because yes, there is that in the spectrum. Diet is one of your biggest players in affecting brain health. So can there be some stuff going on in the brain? I refer you to Dr. Amen. He is my go-to when it comes to getting your brain healthy and teaching you how to do this in support of your children. So let's just talk about the type 1 child. I talk about that in my book, The Child Whisperer. The fun-loving child. And you can see primary connection to the world, social. Primary movement, bouncy and random. Primary need to have fun and happy parents. Okay, so let's say you take a type 1 child and they have a type 4 teacher. He creates a very structured, very repetitive, very focused quality learning environment. And this child needs movement. I've had parents write to me and say, Carol, thank you. I now understand what my child needs in their learning process. They need movement. They need to have experiential stimulation in their learning style. I had one mom write me and say, Carol, my son had to write a book report. He had read the book, and we did a lot of the reading as read aloud. He was probably in 3rd grade. So she would do social time with him, helping him. Not always. There's a lot of times he would read the book by himself, but then she would join him and they do read aloud. Now we're creating a social environment. Now he had this book report he had to fill out on a 1-page sheet that asked questions. So what she did was she'd read him the question while he walked around the table and answered it. He's moving. He's interacting. There's a social quality. Came easily. She jotted down the answers on a separate piece of paper because they were coming from him. She was like the scribe. He then put the answers and wrote them on the paper. I was like, brilliant mother. Yay, mom, figure it out. But when a type 1 child is inserted into a highly structured environment for multiple hours a day, their movement, their need for movement is taken away. They'll create it. They'll fidget. They'll tap their foot. I have a type 1 son, my adopted son. He would sit and tap my type 4 son sitting here with me. Remember that? Drive you nuts. You're like, could you stop tapping your finger, please? He always had to be moving some part of his body. This need for physical movement was so high, and he'd just create the movement. And I'll see people bouncing their knee when they're sitting. They don't even know they're doing it. And so a type 1 child now will create that social stimulus. They'll create that movement. And all of a sudden, in this very strict, structured environment, they're going to look like they're extreme. And now they're creating an extreme because they're not supported in expressing it in a balanced way. So now there's this kind of overt effort, this extreme effort to get it out, and it's just amplified. And now there's the problem child. So I've had many, many, many type 1s and parents of type 1s, hundreds and hundreds, write to me and thank you for letting me go, helping me let go of that label. Thank you for helping me understand that I'm not this flawed person and that I just didn't have the proper environments and the proper support and understanding from the teachers or my parents to support me in what is a natural quality. Thank you for helping me support my children to make sure their teachers understand them or to make sure the environments they're in supports them so that they love their learning experience. It's profoundly just insightful to understand, no, you don't have that issue, that disorder, you have a natural movement. Now, I recommend if there is something that is presenting, and this is your right as a parent, as an individual, to receive divine guidance, and my approach is a prayerful one to seek guidance. If there really is something you need to address on a physical level that's related to a brain imbalance, that you will be guided and directed as to how to correct that, because that can be corrected as well without requiring, I'm not opposed to medication either. It has its place. There's a lot of things you need to line up that you can do along with medication to help create brain health. I've had to do this for myself. I haven't dealt with ADD. I've dealt with anxiety, depression, and OCD tendencies, and even been diagnosed with that from my brain SPECT scans. It was minor. It wasn't severe, thankfully, and I've done a lot of things to heal this that require lifestyle changes. So that definitely is in the formula of getting well and getting your brain healthy. So everything has its place. You need to be guided in your direction and getting well. But again, too many people get put in this category that very likely, and in many, many cases, are just expressing their natural selves, and they need to be supported in that. So what's been your experience with this? How's energy profiling helped you understand yourself better? Share in a comment, because I read them, and I love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and go to dressingyourtruth.com/free offer to experience the Dressing Your Truth Beginner's Book Guide, where I teach you about the 4 types, then how to dress your truth. And if you're into the parenting side of this, thechildwhisperer.com. We have a weekly podcast to help you be an amazing parent to your amazing children. Thanks for watching.